In fact, I'm proud to say with her that she's also my student, and although she took English literature later in her post-graduation, I know that she's very fond of writing, and she's going to share. It's another category of the last category of the work. It's like a narrative, an essay that she has written. You know, it's different. It's on the theme of the Rakan Lad. Am I right, Jan? Yes. Okay, let us hear it from Jan Fernandez.
Good evening, dear writers, readers, teachers, and friends. I'm grateful for this opportunity to share my insights on my story and on the book as a whole. As children, we imbibe moral lessons or we gain knowledge about our culture and beliefs through folk tales. And as Ma'am Pamela has also pointed out, the answer to every curious child's relentless question is often a folk tale. So folk narratives are the most exciting memories associated with our childhood. Now today, sadly, technology has not just replaced the physical book, but it has erased the virtue of reading and writing altogether. And as teachers, we see the tragic comedy in our students' answer scripts. In fact, when Ma'am Sharmila shared the idea about penning folktales in the staff room, I was quite elated, not only because my story would be published, but also because I would get an opportunity to encourage my students to write and get their stories published. But sadly, some of the students were oblivious of the concept of folktales, and the others couldn't think of one. Hence, I view this anthology as a revival of the very idea of a folktale and of the celebration of the oldest and initial forms of storytelling. And I believe that we should encourage our children to read and begin by reading these indigenous narratives. Coming to my story, titled When the Dead Awaken. Now, I have not penned just one story. I have discussed the folk belief in the spirits and in the unknown. Now, Goa's nightlife is flamboyant, but the life at the midnight hour is spooky and mysterious. And I have touched upon this topic because as I have been growing, I have always been interested in anything that is enigmatic, anything that is spooky. So I have heard a lot about horror stories, even concerning my village and even concerning experiences with my relatives. So we are acquainted with a lot of locations wherein we are aware about the appearance of these ghosts or spirits. And the archetype is usually that of a woman donned in white with long hair and crooked feet. Luckily, I haven't met them. And then we have even heard about houses and properties which are abandoned, and it is attributed to the unfulfilled desires of the dead. And then we label them as Pesa or God. Plus, I also learned while penning this folktale, I also learned that there are a lot of forests and trees who are said to house, who are said to embody spirits and deities. And very often this emerges in order to conserve them, and sometimes warnings against entering into a particular forest or swimming in a particular area or even indulging in a vice is wrapped in a folktale. So these are the themes I have touched upon. So you will find snippets of every little thing. I have even discussed Kristalina's board, but mine would be just a nugget to what Dr. Frederick Noronha has discussed. So since I'm here, I would like to thank Ms. Sharmila, Ms. Nandini, Ms. Megan and Dr. Frederick for generating this idea and giving it a tangible form. And I would like to conclude with an advice from Mark Twain. And I quote, "Writing is easy. All you have got to do is cross out the wrong words." Unquote. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jay. It was very, very interesting. I must share this, which Frederick, do I have the time to say a few?
Yeah, please.
I read this in the recent past about the Devtar. I was to wonder, see, in Christianity we have the concept of the demon who is the evil force, but in the Indian culture the Devtar symbolizes a spirit who can have some positive attributes, or maybe when he's angry he is, you have to be aware of him. In the Goan context, recently I came across Devtar Atsar refers to, if I don't know if Professor Varsha has heard about that aspect. Atsar referring to the four corners of the village, and Devtar, the little spirit who inhabits the four corners. And many times, in the Konkan region at least, if a young bachelor has died, his spirit is found atop a tree, and it's a very restless kind of a spirit. He becomes a Devtar. I don't know how far this is true. I'm not sure. That's why this is a narrative that I've read, because I don't really, unless you do a lot more research, I wouldn't like to incorporate this, but I know that Devtar also is a spirit, and in the Hindu culture, a Devtar is sometimes revered, for his malevolent, benevolent qualities, or maybe the malevolent spirit, whichever you look at interpretations to that. Now with this we move ahead, and I invite, if there are contributors here who would like to share about their themes. Is anyone willing to talk about their themes, or
even a Q&A?
Yes. Professor Varsha, would you like to say something?
Good evening, everyone. Megan, I think, talked about my story, the Padwada Chikani, and I got my stories from my paternal grandmother, and she died when I was 10 years old. But I still remember all the stories she used to tell me, and often she used to sing. And even in the Padwada Chikani, there is a singing, the song that I wrote, I don't know, because the folk tales have to be told, and that makes it more
Charming.
And I would like to a stanza from that story, when the husband comes in search of his so the story goes So the story goes that there is 6 brothers and a sister, and the sister is married far off, and the brothers go to see her, and while coming home they bring her along, and she makes lot of food for the journey, and they eat all the food but still hungry. So she says in anger, "Sabne khane to maka khaya." So, and literally they cut her up and they eat her and throw her bones in the nearby pond. And they go home and tell the parents that the husband did not send their sister. So the parents are okay. So after some time the husband comes to take his wife back, and halfway he reaches the pond. And there he sees the snake god growing, and he says, "Oh my wife likes the snake art very much. I will pluck some for her." And when he goes to pluck those, they start singing, and it says, "Padwada bhoti bhavara re, te padwade kon khutita jalyar hodu khut, te koityache ghav maka jalata." So when he hears this, he finds it a little amusing, and then but there is some doubt in his mind. He goes, and then he finds out the truth. So there are lots of stories like this which my grandmother used to sing, and I still remember. And there are so many. If you are coming out with a second edition or a second part of this, because she called me, and there was we were busy in our college work and there was no time to write it down. And I wrote in Devanagari, I couldn't write it, translate it in English. I think Megan had the trouble of translating it. And there are so many. And like you say, the Kolo. The Kolo is very famous in Goan folktales. And even the Kolo is so clever that he has even fooled the gods. So there is one story about Kolo, very small, which says Shiva and Parvati, they were going home to Kailash and somebody had offered them a bunch of bananas. So they were carrying it. So the fox comes in and says, Deva tu vida data, now I will carry it for you. So, and the Shiva knows that the Kolo can't be trusted. So he says, see, तू धरता खरो पण आपल्याक म्हाका फालत्यान दोळे आसा तू खाव जाल्यार म्हाका दिसता पडटलें. So the Shiva and Parvati go ahead and the Kolo comes behind with the bananas and every time he packs one banana, shows it to the back of Shiva and eats it. So when they reach Kailash, he says, Kolya, आज एक केळी. Kolo म्हणपाक लागलो, शिवा तुवें म्हाका सांगिल्लें की फाटल्यान दोळे आसा तुवें दोळ्या दाखोवन दाखोवन खालें तुवें कांय म्हणून. सो ते से कोलो बुद्धीन भोलो ईश्वर पार्वती नागोवन घ्या. सो दॅट्स द स्टोरी ऑफ.
I now invite some questions, or maybe you can share your views or anything that you like to say about this work. Any clarifications that you have to make?